There is a program in the United States Army that would allow a soldier to take a break from being in the Army to go pursue other things with the obligation that they will return at a later date. So let's kind of talk about the requirements with that, the catch to it, and all sorts of other things that kind of are involved with this program. What's up, my friends? U.S. Army veteran Christopher Chaos, and today I'm here to tell you about this program that I didn't even know existed. And maybe there are some individuals out there that are currently in the Army right now that didn't know this existed, and I want to kind of educate you on it. So maybe this is something that you might want to look into. Maybe this isn't something that would apply to you, whatever the case is, but help educate you on something that potentially you didn't know about or maybe you didn't know enough about. So let me kind of fill you in on some of the different details of this program. Of course, if this is the type of content you're interested in, to learn about the Army, to get high speed because you're already in the Army, or maybe you're just a veteran that wants to, see some differences or whatever, make sure that you are subscribed to this channel. Also, make sure you click on that bell to choose all notifications. That way you get alerts when new videos go live, even the live streams, and become a part of that awesome notification platoon. So let's dive into this program, shall we? So the program is called the Army Career Intermission Program, or the CIP. So the intermission part is kind of the key thing. It's like taking a break from the Army. It's taking an intermission from being in the Army. Is what the program does is it allows a soldier to leave the Army for up to 3 years, but they're kind of signing this thing saying that they're gonna come back and they have to come back. Originally, this program actually was approved back in 2009, and it's kind of progressed through there during this pilot program. So it's kind of a limited run type of thing. When it initially started, it was only limited to 20 enlisted soldiers and 20 officers per calendar year. I believe they've gotten rid of that restriction and they've kind of made some improvements on it. But we're talking about it today because in early May of this year, 2021, they've actually approved it to be a permanent thing. So it is no longer in the pilot phase type of thing. It's now a part of the permanent program that if soldiers are eligible to do it and want to do this program and take part in it, then they can do so. There is some eligibility requirements that go along with that. So not just anyone can, take part in this and everything. There's some restrictions and some catches and all sorts of stuff that I'm going to dive into in this video to help you understand it. So we're going to dive into some of the key features of this program, but for those of you who want to know every single kind of area about this program and every little detail, I will leave down in the description box down below a link to the PDF that has the memo that was approved and kind of outlines this whole program and everything like that, so you can check that out down below. So let's first start off with maybe who might use a program such as this. Who would want to take a little break from the Army and then come back later? So I have some ideas in my mind as far as who might be, wanting to take, advantage of this type of program, but also if you have some ideas of people that you think of that in certain situations they would want to take advantage of that type of program, leave those down in the comments section down below. But one of them that kind of stands out maybe is someone who is dual military. Someone who's in the military, who's in the Army, and their spouse is also in the Army. In that example, maybe they want to start a family, but they don't want to have to, try to juggle their job and being in the Army and also raising a newborn right away. So maybe they want to take a little bit of time away to focus on that newborn child, like the mother. So that way, the other person can focus on their career. That person takes a little bit of time away to raise the child and then returns back to the Army. Another example could be to go to college. Maybe you're someone who is like an E5, a sergeant, and your MOS requires a lot of points. Maybe you want to just take a break from the Army, get out, go to college, get an education, come back in, and be able to come back with some education experience. Kind of on that note, just be advised that you can't use the tuition assistance program to kind of go to college if you're doing this program, but you can use the GI Bill if you are eligible to use your GI Bill. Another example could be to take care of a family member. Maybe you have someone who has some kind of horrible disease, they don't have very long, and you want to spend as much time with them as they can. Maybe someone that needs a lot of attention, so you want to help care for them for, the early phases of whatever's going on. Maybe some examples along those lines of an ill family member or someone that needs some kind of special attention. It does even mention if someone wanted to take some time to travel the world, just be aware that whatever your case is as to why you would want to use the program, it has to get approved. So if you just want to simply use it to, start up your YouTube channel or something like that, that may not get approved. So it is still up to the discretion of the leadership and everything and higher ups to approve you into this program. So you have to have probably a good legitimate reason still. So now let's talk about how it works. What are the stipulations? What is the criteria? We'll talk a little bit later about who is eligible and who would not be eligible, but first let's talk about maybe some of the benefits that you get from doing this. What are your requirements? What are your obligations? So this program provides a soldier a one-time opportunity to go from, let's say active duty to the IRR, which is the inactive reserves. There is a max amount of time that they can do this for. So they can choose to use all 3 years, which is the max, or they can just simply maybe use 1 year and then come back in. In the pilot program, they had a minimum of 9 months. In this memorandum, I didn't see if there was a minimum, so there may still be a minimum. They may have gotten rid of the minimum, but I doubt this would be something you could just be like, hey, I'm gonna use this opportunity to take 2 months out of the Army and then come back. So there may still be a minimum, but I'm not sure what that minimum might be. Now, there is an agreement in there. You have to do a counseling. You have to sign paperwork, obviously, saying you agree to everything. One of the things that I want to read the quote of what it says is kind of probably important to some individuals as far as making sure that you don't just let yourself go, I guess. You can't just go and get out of the Army and just go getting fat, I guess. So the quote specifically says that a soldier would agree to undergo inactive duty training as required to retain military skills, professional qualification, and physical readiness. So does that mean that they still have to go do it like ACFT, qualify their weapon, maybe with a reserve unit? I'm kind of reading it as that it's on you. So if you choose to do this program, it's on you to make sure that you don't forget your military skills. Like if you're in a specific MOS and you got to maintain that knowledge and you got to maintain your physical readiness. That way when you come back, you can pass the fitness test and you can meet weight standards. So that way you can't go and blame it when you come back saying like, oh, I haven't done PT or physical fitness for the last 2 years. So you got to give me some time to get back in shape, or I don't remember how to do my job. So I got to, kind of get refreshed on that. So I think this clause is kind of in there to say that, hey, if you're gonna do this, you gotta maintain that knowledge, maintain that physical readiness, so that way when you return, there's no like catching up that needs to be done. That's kind of what I interpret it as. Maybe you interpret it differently, maybe let me know, I guess, but I feel like that's what it's kind of saying is just you gotta maintain that readiness yourself. Some benefits is you still get the privilege of using the PX, using the commissary. You still can use the medical too, so especially if you have a family and you have like dental or vision or medical, you still get the TRICARE stuff, so you still getting to take advantage of all that medical stuff like you were still in the Army. And you actually still get paid. Now, it's not a lot, all right? So don't go counting on it being too much. It's actually only 2/30ths of your base pay. So as an example of that, let's say an E5 who has been in the Army for over 4 years, maybe 5 years or whatever, they would only be making a little bit less than $200 per month, and that's before taxes are taken out. So I guess maybe it pays for your cell phone bill. So it's not very much. Obviously you would have to have some kind of plan of what you're gonna do during that time period, go to school, get a job, whatever, something to support yourself or whatever. Maybe you have another spouse or whatever that's gonna be supporting the family while you're doing this break from the Army, whatever the case could possibly be. And you also need to be aware that you're not receiving BAS, BAH, no special pay, like if you're receiving like language pay or something like that, all that stops. You're only gonna get that 2/30ths of your base pay based on your rank and your time in service. What is the catch? Well, there is somewhat of a catch, I guess. There has to benefit the Army in some way if they're gonna allow you to kind of do this type of thing. So for every month that you are utilizing this program, you are owing the Army 2 months of your time. So in an example, let's say a soldier decided that I have 2 years left on my Army contract, but I want to take a little bit of a break to work on education, work with my family or whatever, and they decide to utilize this, let's say for 1 year. Well, that means when they return, they had before 2 years left on their contract, but because they took that 1 year off in this program, and for every month they owe 2, they now have 4 years left on their contract. So quite a bit, right? It racks up a little bit of time, especially if you use the full 3 years. Because in that example, you have 2 years left in the Army, you've used the full 3 years to do whatever it is you gotta do, and then return, now you owe 6. So clearly this is not something for like, hey, I'm thinking about you getting out of the Army, but maybe I should take a break and then come back in. No, this probably would be a bad idea for that kind of situation. This would probably be best for someone who knows they want to be a career soldier. They know they want to probably stay in for 20 plus years and retire, but they need a little bit of a time away to be able to work on something like their family or education or whatever, and then return to finish out that career and then work their way up to retirement. Not someone that's like on the fence about whether they should stay in the Army, get out of the Army, that kind of a thing. This probably wouldn't be the ideal type of situation for those type of individuals. So now let's talk about what soldiers can use this and what soldiers cannot use this program. For the most part, one of the requirements is that you have to have completed your initial 3-year enlistment. So you can't be someone who's like coming into the Army, they do the first year, 2 year, whatever kind of a thing. They're like, I need a little bit of a break from it already, and then I'm gonna use this program. No, you're gonna have to at least have completed that first initial 3 years. There is also some rank requirements too to be able to be eligible for the program. There is some requirements for like officers. I'm not going to dive into that because that's a smaller percentage of you out there that watch my videos. So just read the memo if you really want to know for the officer side of the house. But for the enlisted side of the house, you have to be an E5 through an E8, which is a master sergeant, but not a first sergeant. So a sergeant through a master sergeant. And that's kind of like the bulk of the main requirements. So especially for those of you that are like the common viewers that are watching my stuff, enlisted soldiers that have been in past their 3-year initial type of contract and are between the rank of a sergeant and a master sergeant. But now let's talk about some soldiers that would be ineligible to take advantage of this program if they wanted to use it. There's a good number of different disqualifications for that, but I'm going to kind of highlight some of the key ones. Again, if you want to know every single disqualification, definitely check out that memorandum down below, but let me kind of highlight a few kind of common things that may kind of disqualify someone. One of them would be a soldier that has already been in the Army for 17 years or more, as at that point they're kind of like, no, you're committed to this, you're gonna be on the way to retirement, pretty soon and all that kind of stuff. So you're gonna have obviously more than 3 years, but less than that 17. Soldiers that also be ineligible will be ones that are already on orders for PCS and or going to another duty assignment. So you have orders to, let's say, go to Fort Polk, and you're like, oh crap, I don't want to go to Fort Polk. Maybe I'll use that program and get the hell out of the Army. Or maybe you don't want to go to some other duty assignment. You cannot use it to try to get out of a duty assignment. You also cannot use it if you're trying to get out of a deployment. If your unit is scheduled to deploy in a certain time frame or whatever, you're on orders for deploying kind of a thing, you can't use it, all right? So you cannot use it to like, oh man, we're gonna go to Iraq, Afghanistan, Russia, whatever the case is. You cannot use this program to get out of a deployment. Also, if you are a soldier that has faced disciplinary action, maybe like a Article 15 or something within the last 2 years, you also be ineligible for that, especially like, someone who's trying to go AWOL or something like that, or went AWOL and now they come back in and they're like, hey, now I'll use this kind of instead of going AWOL, maybe going like legitimately AWOL without, any kind of repercussion and then come back later. And like I said, there are a few other kind of disqualifications. Those are some of the main ones. And kind of, I guess, one more kind of key one is like someone who is also ineligible for reenlistment. So maybe like you're barred from reenlistment because you're overweight or something else, some other reason why you're kind of not eligible for reenlistment, you would also be ineligible for this program. So if you want to know like every single disqualification, definitely check out the memo or maybe get with your leadership to kind of talk to them about this program. This is definitely one of those things where you probably have to weigh the pros and cons to using this program or just simply getting out of the Army. The main intention of this program is to, help soldiers, stay in the Army, right? Maybe there's someone that, they want to be a career soldier, but maybe they're struggling with something in life. Maybe they feel like they're missing out on something. Then this gives them an opportunity to maybe take advantage of this program, go do some family stuff, go get an education, and then come back because they were planning to do 20 plus years anyways. So this really doesn't affect them that much if they're just already just tacking on 6 years. I mean, you almost could look at it as you're kind of re-enlisting to get out of the Army for a little bit, have some fun, and then come back and serve those years. But definitely if you're someone that's like, oh, I'm getting ready ETS pretty soon, should I just use this program and then come back in? Well, you're pretty much guaranteeing that you're gonna have to extend for multiple years. So it might be better in those situations just to get out and evaluate if that's what you wanna do, is stay out and then come back in later, maybe go reserves and kind of try out the reserves if you're on active duty, all that kind of fun things. Also, probably to mention, I mentioned a lot of it for active duty. This program is available for reserves and National Guard. I just don't know how it works for those kind of individuals. I mean, you're only doing 1 weekend a month. I mean, but hey, some things happen. Sometimes, certain situations where maybe this would still benefit you regardless, but I feel like this is more of a thing that maybe active duty soldiers would want to kind of take advantage of, but there can be some circumstances that maybe the reserve soldiers or National Guard or whatever would want to take advantage of it. Just kind of mentioned a lot of the main stipulations for like active duty soldiers. So if you are someone that's reserves or National Guard, probably give you the leadership to find out how the differences kind of work a little bit differently for you type of individuals compared to like active duty. Now, fun fact, did you know that there are some items that the Army will issue you that you get to keep when you get out of the Army? If you want to know about some of those items, well then I recommend checking out this video right here that explains all about that. If you haven't seen my latest video, I got it right here available for you. The links, as always, are down in the description box for Instagram, for the Discord channel, all sorts of other cool stuff, so check out the links down in the description. Hit that like, subscribe to the channel. I'm Christopher Chaos, and I'll see you next time. See ya.